Welcome to Design is Marketing, a podcast for product teams and marketers who want to learn what works and what doesn't when it comes to engaging and converting users. This podcast is brought to you by Sparker, the design agency. If you want to know more about it, check sparker.co. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Design is Marketing. I'm your host, Federico, and my guest today is Rafa Brandao. Rafa has a great experience, and with him, we're going to discuss about personalization, the role of UX, and how he sees the industry is changing. He has had a lot of top positions in different roles across UX, so he's really an inspiring person and someone to learn from. Well, Rafa, I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Fedid. I'm happy to be here. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I think it's important to also mention that even though my entire career was based on big markets, Latin America, and different cultures, moving to food tech world is actually a change of market, and this has everything to do with how user experience and design teams can add to the business, no matter what the business is in the end of the day.
Got it. Got it. It happens often, right? That we focus a lot on the vertical,
Yeah.
but actually, a lot of the learnings that you have in terms of UX are you can use them across industries because in the end, human psychology is really the same.
Yeah, 1000%. And to be completely honest with you and the audience, it was kind of a challenge that I put on myself to move from an industry that I was working for the last 12 years to a completely new one. And has been a pleasure and a lot of learnings in terms of users behavior, the market behavior, how people use the product, which platforms, their habits that are completely different from my previous companies. But in the end of the day, we have users and we need to please them with great experiences, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you see that, but especially if you are a big fan of like lateral thinking, I think that there is actually a lot that you can leverage in terms of learning from one industry into another, probably something that no one else has tried before.
Yeah, yeah. I'll touch bases on some of these because some initiatives and some decisions and and a lot of work that user experience teams do actually are problem solving frameworks or steps or workshops, and every business has wicked problems that need to be solved.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the overall idea.
Yeah, and perhaps, and then later on, I would like to also tell us a little bit more about yourself and your career. But the very last thing that I wanted to check if you agree with is that often, say, people that have been doing the same thing can kind of get into tunnel vision, whereas someone that comes with a fresh pair of eyes can bring something new. Yeah, check it. Wanted to check if that's also your case.
Yes, and I think on the top of that, the benefit of coming fresh without further experience on a given market puts you in a position where you can openly ask questions that no one that is deeply involved is somehow free to ask. And
You can
then
ask the stupid questions.
and every time you think a question is stupid, it's probably the best question everyone could possibly make in a meeting. The
True.
thing is that you benefit from the fact that you don't know the stakeholders, that you don't know your peers that well, and then because you need the context, you go there and ask, and then important things can happen. I can share with you guys that I made a onboarding diagnosis just to understand the market where I was going into and the products that I would need to manage with my teams. And I had to make a lot of questions to get to know this context better and faster. And I was like, I had a lot of side conversations with a lot of folks saying, "Thank God you asked that question." Is that is, this is kind of curious because everyone is very knowledgeable and we have a lot of vertical experts, but in the end of the day when we ask a more broader question or like long-term view kind of question, people actually usually don't have the answers, and that's also where the user experience team, I actually call our teams as design and experience rather than, because yeah, it's an attempt to connect to the overall business. It's been part of my career to also advocate for design teams to be part of the core business, to be in the meetings where strategic decisions are made. So we need to bring the users information and how things are and what the plan is as we move forward. But it is as important as any other vertical that the business has.
Yeah, I think it's I think you put it very well.
Yeah.
I would like now to take a step back and ask you to tell us more about yourself and your previous experience. Because well, your experience in the field is really huge. So yeah, please share it with us.
Okay, okay. I do that often, actually. I go straight to business and then I forget to talk about myself a little bit. But I'm talking to you all from my home country, Brazil. I live in Rio with my family and my wife. I've been working on international companies for a while, but pretty much from my office in Rio. So it's kind of unique. I've been part of the streaming business for the last working on very cool projects like the Olympic Games here in Rio, two World Cups, a lot of music festivals like Rock in Rio and Lollapalooza, which are probably the biggest ones in the world, and a very different assortment of digital products, but all very focused on streaming, video streaming services in a way where I was one of the responsibles to build the digital presence for very well known TV channels or TV companies. And then after a while working in Global, which is the biggest one in Brazil and in Latin America, I spent some time on the paid TV business in Telecine, very focused on movies and cinema, which is kind of cool. And then after that, I was invited to join Warner Bros. Discovery. At the time that I joined, it was only Warner Media, but then after the merger with Discovery, we had a bigger name, and I was responsible for the entire product experience in Latin America, which put myself and my team in a very interesting position where we needed to deeply understand cultural aspects, language, and actually time zones and etc. Because all of that put together impacts the user experience. And if you think about the streaming services being based on catalog, title catalog, it's also part of the experience, understanding the rules and where a specific title is available versus not. So this was part of a bigger thing we all call product experience. Very attached to design and design dogmas and decisions, but also thinking and putting together cultural aspects that differ a lot from country to country, I have to say. And then for the last couple of months, I moved to a different market. I'm now part of iFood, which is the biggest food tech in Latin America. I'm leading a very brilliant team of people that are responsible for everything groceries wise. So everyone in Brazil can shop with us, no matter if it's for pets, pharmaceuticals, overall groceries. But there's a different aspect, and it's important to notice. We are also in charge of everything business tools wise. Not only the end user, the consumer experience, but also the partner experience. So I'm having some conversations with Instacart, Uber Eats, and other players just to understand the business better. But it's very exciting. The numbers are actually big.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, what I really like about all the things you said, right, is that
even just one of the things you mentioned would be for a lot of people really the peak of their career, definitely something to be very proud of. Either the Olympics or iFood or HBO or Husapalooza. Well, it seems that you have a lot of them. So my job today is actually I will have the privilege to ask you the questions that I guess a lot of people in product or design would want to ask you. So that's
Awesome.
how I see my role today. Well, and one of the things that I found very interesting from the very first conversation we had was really like the your take on the role of UX and design, right? You also hinted at it now in the way that you said you structured your team. Would you like to tell me more about how do you see that? How do you think the role of UX has changed in the last years?
Absolutely. Yeah. I I always put first without teams or without being a team leader. I always put myself as someone that had something to add on the strategic conversations. And by strategic, I'm simply referring to where we want to go together based on what being able to measure like long-term view. In my case, every time thinking about digital products, offers, and services, but in the end of the day, being part of the strategic conversations meant to me and means today being part of conversations that can drive the business future, the future of the business that I'm in. And then I've always put my teams and myself and my peers in a position where we had something to add on those conversations. Of course, we have the most granular deliverables from every design team, the Figmas, the components, if I think about atomic design or not, but we need to build the product from scratch. Yeah, definitely. And this is sometimes where what we bring to the table, to the conversation in order to make decisions. Doing some steps back, I'm also referring to the bigger picture where we try to answer the whys before the hows somehow. Then we put a lot of things that are coming from users, from the industry, from some principles in terms of aesthetics, in terms of experience, in terms of architecture, putting in front of business people, tech teams, data, other stakeholders, opportunities to get there, opportunities that are very that have a lot of information based on the decisions that are being brought to the table, and we have this extraordinary skill where we can actually make some things beforehand in order for pretty much for visual people to understand what are we doing. And then this is somehow also how the user experience market is shifting. There's an opportunity, and then we all need to understand how to do it. But the overall product role that used to be the business stakeholder or the ones that had more about the business, this is drastically changing. So my former position and my current position being product experience means a lot. I have one foot in user experience and another foot in the business side. I know that my needs are related to what the hell is happening with the users, but this drives business conversations. So I see the industry moving to a position where design and product are actually merger, or we need to understand how to leverage this couple to deliver more, and also bringing the tech teams together, because if they are just doing whatever other teams are saying they need to do, this is wrong as well, right?
Got it. Yeah, I would like to actually ask you to elaborate more on what you said in terms of the way in which UX specialists can contribute to the business conversation. So, what is the insight that UX specialists can bring to the table that will make them heard by business people?
Uh, sure. I guess First and foremost, from a user's perspective, what's really going on? What people are saying that they want? Where are the pains, but also the opportunities? And no matter how you name that framework, that is usually named as voice of the consumer, this is a deliverable from the user experience team. This happens way before putting a product together, way before than doing user interfaces or anything. This helps, sorry, everyone to prioritize what needs to be part of any roadmaps. So this is the user knowledge framework. When it comes to the roadmap, we are the ones that need to work collaboratively with each other and with other teams to define what will happen from now to the future. I have some trouble saying vision because I think vision is way too much. I'm actually just referring to what should we all focus on, what we want to be. And this has to do with prototyping some things, aligning with some other teams, understanding from a business and from a user's perspective if those things all together have the expected value proposition, that kind of thing. So there are different outcomes depending on where we are in terms of processes before
So,
the roadmap and after the roadmap.
in it from the other perspective, what is it that a UX specialist has that someone from a different business line doesn't have? Like, for example, all these things that you just described, why cannot they be done by someone who works in marketing or in development, for example?
I think some things are actually a collaboration with the marketing teams, especially when it comes to the user knowledge framework in terms of CSAT surveys, brand surveys, everything that comes from the user is usable. I've been part of industries that the market insights team or group or professional were part of the tech teams, and also in other, these guys were part of the marketing teams. But no matter where they are placed, the information that they provide on a regular basis is used on any voice of consumer or any user knowledge framework. There are some gray areas where we need to collaborate, but I guess we have skills that can, based on a lot of information, really drill this down and focus on what is really important from a user's perspective. And there are different methodologies and different skills that might make some investigations easier or streamlined connect to the product organizations and work. And in terms of what happens building visions, building the day to day with the teams and based on roadmaps. Those are actually the artifacts, the additional surveys, the user interface, the prototypes, the more tactical work. But by tactical, I don't mean by any means that this is less than strategical. This is the only way where we can strategically think if we are also able to tactically do, right?
Okay, well, so if what I'm hearing from you is that you're not advocating for UX specialists to replace the role of what other teams are doing, but rather for a closer collaboration. And I think also what
Absolutely.
you had is that both UX people, designers, but actually also developers should
Yeah,
better learn to kind of speak the language of business.
absolutely. Yeah. In the end of the day, it's really about every team and pretty much every professional depending on their own career thinking and where they want to be on their careers. It's really to be very well versed in terms of business. I moved from the advertisement market like thousands of years ago to design and then user experience and product experience because back then I didn't really know why I was doing or putting effort on the things that I was doing. this changes everything. And this is actually probably the root cause of I need to be connected to the business because I need to understand where myself and my teams and my peers and my overall structure is adding value, is impacting.
Very
And then
interesting.
everyone has a lot to contribute, but I really believe on a very collaborative work.
Interesting. Well, because I have to say that, well, as a designer, as a UX person, for example, I really hammer a lot on the importance of bringing UX people in the conversation, not just at the end when everything has been decided, but really say when you talk about business things. But I also have to say that in relationship to other, say, when I think of other designers, this gives me a lot of imposter syndrome in a way because it kind of makes design itself feel less pure. You know, if you talk about bottom line and business metrics. Have you ever had the same?
Yeah, I have to say that I also remember to my team and sometimes to myself that we need to put not only the marketing teams or people, but also other teams beforehand and not only let them know the solutions because I've been fighting this fight the opposite way my entire career to be part of the conversations from the beginning. But I don't see that as an imposter syndrome or anything like that because everyone has something to add, and we are not actually asking to be part because we want to be there. It's literally because we need something to add. And I would be the first one to say we don't need to be there if we don't need anything to if we don't have anything to add. And if we think about some companies, some stories that we read, and some business that we might know better, especially the tech digital, the teams are built or the industry has been trying to build teams around this collaborative aspect. I understand when we need to go there and say we need to involve XYZ, but hopefully the way we are being put together and the groups of people that are part of a specific team might contribute to that. To give you a real example, we have in iFood some squads, some teams that have people from social media, for example, from which is part of the marketing organization, but is there working day to day with the product teams because this specific journey or this specific product has a lot of things going on social, for example, or PR, or even the GTM initiatives, the go to marketing initiatives. We have people that are involved on the daily conversations just to know beforehand and be able to build this to the market better. It's not about okay, I'm using the product and then I discover that something new is going on and I need now to do a go to marketing project or initiative. It's an attempt, right? I think it's a long term run. It's a marathon. It's not a fast kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a bit too often we have kind of like the right answer syndrome in which you don't take things as experiments, but they just have to work from day one. And
Yeah,
that's a
and there is
case.
another aspect, Fede, which is I'm not a design purist in the terms of all the dogmas and all the rules and all the things related to the color themes. And I come from the advertisement world. I did my master's in design and technology. Then I actually plugged from the beginning design, technology, digital services, products, and I think this helps me to fluctuate this easier, and being a team leader and a team person, I'm very proud to manage people and to work with them on their careers, on my career. I I really think this is one of the aspects that we discuss the most. How can we be how can we keep and maintain all of the design dogmas and ideas and importance in pretty much in terms of academia when we go to companies and when we plug business, when we all know that sometimes a lot of the rules and things need to be repurposed somehow.
Yeah, got it. Because
Yeah.
I guess obviously being able to build and manage a multidisciplinary, sorry, that's kind of hard, a cross-functional team, it's very important, right? When you do something like what you